Alright folks, just a quick video. So, I figured again, what I was thinking about last night, that a history of how we got to where we got to from the Second World War is useful. So here we go again. Do it again. Yes. So, okay, Second World War. Men go off, shooty, 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 bang, 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 see nasty, horrendous, horrible bloody things. I mean, really nasty. I mean, imagine seeing your best friend, that you're talking to your best friend on the, well, where the war is, basically, in the area. And then suddenly his head gets blown off, or part of his head gets blown off as you talk to him. This is the person you've grown up with. You've been together since you were about 3 years old. And in your experience of war, you've seen people with, the legs blown off and their insides hanging out. So this is your experience. When you come back from the war, this is all in your head. Right. So that's where the men are. The women, well, they are not housewives during the war. They go out and they go into factories and to other places to keep the country going, and also to help to build the things that we need for the war, the tanks, the bullets, the planes, and all the other bits and pieces that are needed for war. All the bits and pieces that were being done by men, but the men who are now off fighting, having all these nasty things put into their heads. So the war ends and society says we should go back to normal. Women back in the home and men back to work. Yeah, men back as fathers and husbands and employees, and women back as wives and mothers and housewives. So it went back as it was. The problem is the men didn't want it, the women didn't want it, and so now we have a time of highly reluctant parents, because of course they would have been highly reluctant. Now of course these people are now the parents of the generation that were known as the swinging 60s and the free love generation. So of course they had grown up as kids seeing the darkness and the horror of war, and many have grown up with parents who the mother didn't want to know them, the father didn't want to know them. And so as they were growing up, you had the rock and roll coming from America. Bill Haley and the likes. It only took about another 10 years, and then Times magazine was saying, "Is God dead?" And it's because so much of the youth left the church. And of course they did. Of course they did. Things for the youth were dark, basically since creation, pretty much. They didn't really have anything to do. They didn't really have any music that they could jump around to or cheer. Suddenly, here we are. Yeah, of course they're going to run to that. Of course they are. The church didn't need to panic. The church needed to actually sit down with God and say, okay, what do we do now? But it didn't. It panicked, of course, because Times magazine puts out a cover saying, "Is God dead?" So the church panics. We see in the film The Jesus Revolution that the hippies were basically brought in. Yeah. And helped to rebuild the church. Because of course they were the younger generation that left the church, right? Yeah, the problem is they come back, they're stoned, they're high on any sort of happy pills and acid and whatever else they could put into their little tiny bodies. But they're the influence now of how church is going to be built. The worship songs, all that sort of stuff. Everything changed after that. Because before then, before the 70s, you had hymns, and it was all hymns basically. Suddenly we started to get songs more similar to that of the world. Yeah, songs like Seasons of the Sun. We had songs like that in the church. So that brought more younger people in because there was a bit more joy in the church. Okay. But then they said, okay, so how should we do things? So they looked at the world. They saw, okay. Now, worldly speakers, they have a fantastic time. They would have seen a few worldly speakers. In certainly the people in charge who were running the churches, because they would have been heads of business. So they would have gone to conferences and seen how conferences are done, seen these speakers and see what a fantastic job they're doing. And I thought, okay, we need to do that. We need to understand how they do that, and we need to do the same. Cool. So that's how the ministry should be. Cool. Right, do that, yeah. And the music, same. Yeah. Have the music be linked to the ministry, so it all ties in. Cool. Okay, that's that bit. What about how churches should look? McDonald's, Burger King, all those places. It doesn't matter where in the world you go, they look the same. No matter where in the world you go, you feel comfortable because you're entering a McDonald's and you know what to expect. So, the Baptist Church decided that all their churches would be the same, as did the Methodist Church, as did the Charismatic churches, the Pentecostal, etc., etc. And so no matter where in the world you went, you would find, if you were Pentecostal, you would find a Pentecostal church, and it'd be very similar to the one at home. But they got that idea from McDonald's. They didn't get it from God. They got it from McDonald's. So then, okay. So we've got that sorted. Well, what about, how do we train our ministers? Because, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you had ministers that were talking very much about hell, damnation, sin, accountability, repentance, fruit, and all that sort of stuff. Well, that's why the people left. Okay? That isn't why the people left, but the people in those days thought that that's why the people left. So get rid of all that. Yeah? We don't want any of that now in church. That's why in the early 90s we got to a point where certain scriptures, any scripture talking about anything to do with there be judgment and anyone who's not bearing fruit will be cut off and thrown in the fire. No, we can't mention that in church. No, we skip past that. We don't mention that. But that all comes from that point of understanding that people left because what was being preached was too dark, was too heavy, and so they wanted to lighten it up. Yeah. So okay. How can we train our ministers to do that? Well, the world uses a college system, and in the world, if you want to do engineering, it doesn't matter what college you go to. Pretty much the course is going to be identical. It's going to be pretty much the same because that's engineering. So what if we build a system? What if we build a college system? A Bible college where we teach people all around the world, but we teach pretty much the same, certainly based around the same principles. We teach people how to be evangelists. We teach people how to be a pastor, how to be a teacher, how to be a worship leader. But we teach people how to do things according to that which we've learned already. How to do things according to McDonald's, how to do things according to the worldly speakers. And so here we are. A whole load of people left the church. Times magazine said, "Is God dead?" The church looked at the world. Well, of course it would, because, as I say, a lot of the people running the churches would have been quite business people and would have gone to conferences and seen all of that. And so, therefore, yeah, they naturally went to the world. The problem is, you see, is that if you're waiting on God for an answer, so if Times Magazine said, "Is God dead?" If they'd done things God's way, they wouldn't have gone to the world. They wouldn't have looked at worldly speakers. They wouldn't have looked at McDonald's. They wouldn't have looked at blaming negative messaging for the people leaving. They would have understood why people left. And they would have just been calm. They would have just been understanding and saying, "Don't worry about it. Yeah, this is all part of God's plan. God is all knowing. He knew we would come to this point, so let's not worry about it. Let's focus on what do we do moving forwards, and let's go to God, and let's ask Him, and let's wait until He gives us direction, and then we do that." Problem is, all of that takes time, but all of that also takes peace. You have to be at peace. You have to understand that God is always in control. Always in control. That there is nothing that God doesn't know. That what was happening right then, God knew that that was going to happen. God knew that Times Magazine was going to put an article saying, "Is God dead?" He knew that. He wasn't panicking. He didn't react. We didn't need to react either. But the problem is we did. We overreacted. So if you look at the church and look at society, as I said the other day, society is at a point where now basically children are in control. Certainly parents and schools, which is bloody bizarre. And the people that had no power now have all the power. The people that had all the power now have no power. It's all down to reaction. It's all down to society reacting and overreacting and overshifting. So rather than coming to a happy medium, they go from one side of the needle right over to the other. And the church just did the same. That's all they did, was the same. They reacted. They overreacted. They panicked. And they went to the things they knew. The things that clearly worked. Which was of this world. Okay? So, that's a very quick, very simplified explanation. Now, of course, at no point in time did a group of people meet in rooms and work things out in 13 minutes, the way I've just said. These things would have taken months and months and months and months and months, and, you know, which came first, I don't know. But you can certainly see that, yeah, the church is very much like McDonald's. Very much. And, yeah, they would have looked at how the world trains engineers and things like that and seen the similarity as to how they want the church to be. And so they were created a Bible college from that sort of understanding. And then speakers, yes, they would have seen worldly speakers and they would have copied that, yes. That's obvious. So, yeah. But that's all about control. That's all about, okay, you know, basically, you know, Times Magazine is saying God is dead. Ah! Everyone screams and everyone just wants to get some control back. Because obviously most of the kids have left, and of course the parents are screaming at the church leaders that they're losing their kids and their kids are going to go to hell because that's what they were taught before. So everyone just panics. They just want to get some form of control. So if we can control what the church be like, if we can control how our pastors are trained, if we can control what sort of message they will bring out. And there you have it. Now, complete control. Yeah. But that's why, well, as I say, the pastor at the church down the road, Manuel. I saw him about 6 months before he left, and I saw him just before he left. So after at least 5 months not seeing him, after 5 months he looked as if he had aged about 10 years. Trying to have complete control over a church, trying to be a father, trying to be a husband. You got no chance. No chance at all. That's why Jeff, Jeff is not a slim man. Jeff Oakes is a big man. If he continues the way he is, he won't make it. He won't make it. If he's continually jetting off here and there and here and there and here and there and here and there and going to this conference, that thing, this thing, his heart will fail. His heart will fail because of what he's doing, not because of, it's his time. Yeah. Well, unless he loses a ton of weight. But the problem is a lot of people think they can lose a ton of weight, and because they lose a ton of weight, suddenly they'll be okay. No, because there's all that damage you did to your heart, for all those years before anyway. And so it doesn't necessarily mean... Certainly you have to deal with your life and taking a lot of that stress away. Trying to be responsible for 3 lots of ministry is going to be highly stressful. And so there you go. We are where we are, and I wish these people well. Manuel is no longer a minister; he's now a teacher or lecturer. So hopefully that'll help him at least. Whether he can help anyone else in his job, I don't know. As I said before, having him being the person who's now training people, oh dear. If he's training people to do things as he did things, and that isn't good. If he's learned and training people and teaching them by his mistakes, then great. But is that the case? I don't know. We shall see. But you take care. God bless. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.